Unit 2 Chemistry, Chapter 13, Part 2. So let's have a look at how water dissolves different types of substances. So the first one it can dissolve is ionic substances. So the hydrogen in the water molecule is attracted to the anions in the lattice. The oxygen is attracted to the cations. They're constantly moving around, and that pulls the outer ions out of solution, which then exposes the ones inside and makes them the outer. And we keep on moving around until we can hydrate as much of it as is possible. We can write an equation for this. So if you have something like sodium chloride as a solid, we put it in, and it's going to break up to make the two separate ions, sodium ions and chloride ions, and we change the state from solid to aqueous. AQ specifically means dissolve in water. Okay? We now have hydrated sodium and chloride ions as opposed to a solid lattice. This attraction here, which is between the dipole of water and the anion or the cation, is called an ion dipole bond or ion dipole attraction. We can also dissolve polar covalent substances through hydrogen bonding. So something like ethanol has an OH group. This OH group is polar. And because it has an oxygen attached to hydrogen, it actually can make a hydrogen bond. Okay? Ethanol will make hydrogen bonds with itself. But if we put it into water, then we can change this from a liquid form to an aqueous form. The water just goes on the arrow because it's present for this change to occur. Okay? And here we have a hydrogen bond between water and the OH group of the ethanol. Okay? Some organic molecules which are polar will dissolve in water, some won't. It really depends on how many polar groups they've got and the size of that relative to the non-polar group. So this has got a huge non-polar group and a tiny little polar one, so this is highly unlikely to dissolve in water. Whereas here we've got many polar groups spread around, so that means each of them is going to make hydrogen bonds with water, and therefore it will dissolve. There are also some polar covalent substances where the bond is so polar it actually makes ions. Okay, these are essentially our acids and bases that we're going to look at in a couple of chapters' time. Okay, so if we have something like hydrogen chloride, this bond here, very polar, and what can actually happen is the chloride steals all of the electrons, leaving this as a separate hydrogen ion. And that separate hydrogen ion can actually bond on to the water. Okay, so what we're seeing here is the hydrogen chloride and the water react to make this extra ion, which is called the hydronium ion, which is able to dissolve in water because it's charged, so this can be hydrated, and the chloride ion, which can also be hydrated. Same thing happens with other acids. Now we said that it dissolves ionic substances. It is important to remember that not all ionic substances will dissolve in water. Some of the lattices are very strongly bonded together. Okay, so this very complex ionic substance, for instance, makes up your bones and your teeth, and you should be very grateful that that's not going to dissolve in water because you wouldn't want your bones dissolving on you.